Welcome, fellow adventurers, and today is the 109th day on the cruise, and we have arrived in the Sultanate of Brunei. The quiet Darussalam, the Arabic word for abode of peace, has the largest oil fields in Southeast Asia. They pull about 200,000 barrels of oil a day out of their waters. And because they are so rich, they have had no need to ruin their rainforests and plant palm trees for the palm oil that you see in a lot of countries in Southeast Asia. Borneo is a Muslim country, and the Sultan that has been in power over 50 years has basically run the country under Sharia law. I will talk about this a little bit more later, but first, as our guide picked us up from the cruise terminal, we went to this major hotel, which was called the Empire. And on the way to the hotel, our guide had talked to us about how the Sultan's brother was the head of finance for Brunei, and somehow he was able to lose, gamble away, or steal $50 billion of the kingdom's funds. This hotel was originally built for friends and guests of the Brunei Sultanate, and after these funds went missing, this hotel was sold to the private sector to run as a hotel. Our guide also took us by all of the horses and the polo fields that the Sultan owned. Our next stop was the Jame Mosque. This mosque was built for the current Sultan, who has been the 29th Sultan of Brunei. So there was 29 steps up to the mosque. There was also 29 minarets. Frankly, this was an absolutely beautiful mosque, and nothing was spared in its design or in the quality of materials used. We all had to wear these black robes to cover ourselves from neck to toe before we could go into the mosque. And Nick went over to an area where he could clean himself, where that is traditionally done by both the males and the females before they're allowed to go into the mosque. Next, we drove by the royal palace. And this royal palace is the largest palace in the world. In fact, it's even larger than the estate of Buckingham Palace. Now, of course, we couldn't get in, but we took some pictures outside and could not only see this from the street, but also got a little bit of a glimpse once we did a water tour in the afternoon. What is interesting is that this Sultan now is building a brand new palace not far from the current one, but it is up a hill where it can see the water as well as the current one can see the water from the palace grounds. The current Sultan is very much loved by the population of Brunei, which is about 420,000. And he has been very generous to these people. In fact, extremely generous before the $50 billion went missing. And some of the subsidies or special items that were available for his subjects were taken away after that point. But still today, he subsidizes their rice. They can buy 10 kilos of rice for $10, and he also subsidizes the price of gasoline at the pump, and it was about 50 cents a liter. Next, we went to lunch, and our guide took us to a typical lunch for the Brunei people. At one time in Brunei, there was a lack of rice, and so what happened is they put together this starch that was made by crushing certain types of roots from a tree, and they call it ambuot. Now, I have to tell you, the consistency was Very unique, in fact, a bit on the slimy side, and I didn't quite care for it. There was little flavor, but the consistency was very odd in your mouth. Across the street from our lunch venue was a white and green house, and that was, in fact, the palace that the current sultan was born in, because they didn't always have oil in Brunei. I believe it came in the late 1920s. After lunch, we went to the Royal Regalia Museum, where we could only take pictures at the very beginning of all of the pomp and circumstance over the crowning of the Sultan. There was this huge inaugural processional throne that was only used once, and it was made of tiger skin. And there was about 50 men that powered this throne. We also went to the museum, which we could show no pictures, that showed the crown jewels. It showed all kinds of gifts that were given from foreign countries and dignitaries to the Sultan, and had pictures of the Sultan throughout his life and schooling, etc. One picture that really caught my attention was the picture of him and his 9-year-old brother, because in Brunei, between the age of 8 and 9, you get circumcised as a male. They also mentioned to us that women are circumcised at birth using no anesthesia, because I guess it doesn't hurt, so they said. But it's so hard for me to believe in 2018 they are still circumcising women. And to also mention, there is no religious freedom per se in Brunei. They allowed the last building of a church and Buddhist temple in 1980. The only religion that is allowed is Islam. You are also not allowed to gather publicly, even though the police take a blind eye. You are not allowed openly or publicly to talk about your non-Islamic beliefs with anyone. Proselytizing is absolutely against the law. Our next stop was going to a water village. There are huge water villages with people that live on stilts. From the shore, there are walkways that connect one home to another, or a grocery store, or a school. There are beautiful jetties along the river to pick you up and take you to certain places where you can hail a boat to pick you up. When we got on the boat, it was a Superman boat, which I thought was pretty funny. Anyhow, the driver took us out into the river because we wanted to see the proboscis monkeys. We got a couple pictures of them, but they were quite far away, so you can't see their large nose, which they are known for. Also, while on the river, we passed the Royal Palace and also saw the brand new palace that is being built, and it looked very European style of architecture. We stopped at the water village on stilts and went into a house. We didn't realize it at the time, but it was our boat driver, Mr. Superman. His wife made us something to eat, and the kids were in the house, and the house was very nice. According to our guide, he was quite rich because he owns all kinds of boats that he rents out to other drivers as taxis for people on the river. He also had a gym called the Superman Gym for weightlifting. And little did we know that he received the title of Mr. Brunei because he won the weightlifting contest for the country. We congratulated him, and he flexed his muscles for us. Our next mosque that we visited was the Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque, or better known as SOAS. SOAS. This mosque was built by the current Sultan's father, and he was the 28th Sultan. So there was 28 minarets on this mosque. This mosque looked so much almost like a European cathedral because there was so much stained glass. There were chandeliers made in Austria, and in comparison to the current Sultan's Mosque, it was quite small. I am standing in front of the SOAS Mosque here in Brunei. This was built in 1958 for the previous Sultan for a cost of $10 million. It is absolutely beautiful, and it has been built with the highest quality of materials brought in from all countries around the world. After we left the mosque, we saw some food on the streets and just walked by to see what they were offering. And we saw them barbecuing coconuts. I am in Brunei and they are barbecuing coconuts. And apparently when you drink them, they're supposed to be extremely good for you. I know they're good for you drinking them without being barbecued, but this is the first time ever I have seen this. So we have decided to buy one of these coconuts and drink them to see for ourselves. There it is. So we asked to try one, and we did. The coconut water was warm. It wasn't very hot, but it was warm, and they were talking about how many nutrients were in the coconut water, as we all know. But I had to try it because I never even thought of barbecuing a coconut. We had a full day in Brunei and really got a sense of this country and what it is like. Our next stop is Kuching, Malaysia, also on the island of Borneo. In closing, my wish for you is that you will love abundantly, protect your health, and be adventurous for life. You are beautiful. Let your light shine. Aloha.